He slaughtered an entire rival family just because they looked at her. Dante Moretti doesn't do romance. He does body bags. So when an innocent baker walked into his private den, the Chicago Mafia didn't know what hit them. His sister threatened her life. His underboss kidnapped her mother, and the High Council voted him out. His solution: a forced, untouchable mafia wedding in 72 hours. You need to hear how this $12 date mistake turned into an empire-shaking romance. Welcome back to the Midnight Broadcast. Let me paint a picture for you. The city is quiet, but inside a penthouse office, chaos is just waking up. Emma is backed against a mahogany desk, her heart pounding. Dante Moretti, the king of the Chicago underworld, has her pinned. There is literal blood drying on his collar. In a moment of pure, blinding panic, Emma blurts out the one secret she guards most. She whispers that she has never been kissed. It stops this ruthless man dead in his tracks. His hand freezes. His eyes go pitch black. She thinks she just signed her own death warrant, but instead he brushes her cheek and smiles. We often try to hide our vulnerabilities, but here is a simple truth. Sometimes the raw, embarrassing things we accidentally confess are exactly what save us, completely changing the course of our lives. Before we watch this beautiful disaster unfold, you and I need to settle in. Pull up a chair and let us rewind the tape. Our girl Emma had exactly $12 in her checking account when she walked into that Mafia high-rise at 11:47 on a rainy Tuesday. She knew it was a reckless move. Every instinct told her to leave the catering invoice at the empty front desk and vanish. But her toxic boss had been threatening her job all week, and she was running on fumes after a brutal double shift. Her vision was practically blurring from pure exhaustion. It is a dangerous thing, letting desperation take the wheel. The real takeaway here is something we often forget. Never let a terrible boss push you into compromising your own safety. Exhaustion strips away our boundaries and makes us do dangerous things. So, her tired brain decides to ride the private elevator straight to the penthouse. It is a massive red flag. The hallway on the top floor was dead silent, the kind of heavy, suffocating quiet that makes your bones ache to run. But Emma pushed past the fear. She had spent her whole life terrified of ending up completely destitute like her mother. She knocks on the heavy door, hears nothing, and pushes it open. Her voice sounds so fragile in that cavernous room. The space is cold and sleek, the floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Chicago skyline like shattered pieces of glass. Listen closely, because this is an important truth. When your gut is screaming that a room is dangerous, you turn around. Your past trauma should never be allowed to overwrite your basic survival instincts. The office smells of dark wood and expensive leather, dripping with lethal wealth. And right there, sitting quietly in the shadows behind his desk, is Dante. Emma forgets how to pull in air. She had seen him from a distance before. But standing this close is a whole different reality. He is in his mid-30s, with sharp, unforgiving features. But his eyes are the real danger. They lock onto her, tracking her like a predator who finally caught his prey. She barely chokes out a small apology, her hands trembling. You know, there is a serious lesson we can pull from this exact moment. Looks can be incredibly deceiving. Just because someone is beautifully put together does not mean they aren't the most dangerous person in the room. Always stay alert to what hides beneath the surface. She stammers that the door was open and she only brought an invoice, but Dante drops 2 icy words into the quiet room. Come here. It wasn't an invitation, it was an absolute command. Her legs carry her right to his desk. She holds out the envelope, fingers shaking. But he doesn't take it. He interrogates her with his eyes, demanding to know why she is out delivering bills at midnight. She tries to explain, but he cuts her off. You made the cannoli, he murmurs. She is totally baffled. As he leans forward, she finally sees the dark, wet stain on his collar. The lesson here is unavoidable. True excellence always leaves a mark. Even in the absolute darkest of rooms, pouring your soul into your hard work is exactly what gets you noticed by those who hold the real power. There it is, fresh blood. Just a few sinister drops staining his crisp white collar. Dante completely ignores it, smoothly claiming her pastries were the best he ever tasted. Her mouth goes bone dry as he suddenly orders her to sit. She tries to politely back out, but his voice drops to a lethal octave. Sit down, he demands. Her knees literally buckle, dropping her heavily into the leather chair. Every alarm bell in her mind is screaming. The empty building, the blood, the terrifying way he is studying her. Then he hits her with a chilling question. Are you afraid of me? Her first instinct is to play brave and lie, but here is a crucial truth for your own life. When you are dealing with a truly dangerous force, dishonesty is your worst enemy. A predator will always sniff out a fake answer. Yes, she breathes, the truth escaping her. Dante smirks, and it is the kind of dark, knowing smile that proves exactly why he rules this city. Good, he murmurs. You are smarter than you look. He promises he will not hurt her. A wild statement coming from a man wearing another person's blood. He casually pulls out a checkbook, writes a number, and slides it across the wood. Emma looks at the zeros and nearly stops breathing. It is 3 times her invoice. This is too much, she gasps. He simply calls it a tip, standing up to reveal a frame built for pure violence. There is a heavy takeaway here we all need to remember. Always know your worth, but deeply understand when a gift comes with invisible strings. By taking that money, she steps onto his radar, and there is absolutely no walking back. Picture this tension. It is midnight, and Emma is standing in the center of the lion's den. Dante studies her, pointing out she either has crazy guts or is completely foolish for walking in. She whispers that she is terrified, her heart hammering violently against her ribs. He slowly walks around the massive desk looming over her. This should be pure nightmare fuel, but here is the twist. Underneath the fear, she feels a strange, magnetic spark. Then he drops the ultimate bomb. Have dinner with me. Her tired brain short-circuits as he calmly mentions he will send a car tomorrow. It goes to show that life operates on a bizarre logic. Sometimes, stepping directly into the very center of what scares you the most is the only way to completely rewrite your story. Emma panics, reminding him that she doesn't even know him. Dante just stares right through her defenses. He calmly points out she knows exactly what he does, yet she hasn't run. She tries to keep it professional, calling him Mr. Moretti, but he shuts it down. Say my name, he demands. When she finally breathes the word Dante, his eyes go impossibly dark. Good girl, he murmurs, sending a heavy shiver down her spine. He hands her a card, telling her he will see her at 8. It is a smooth threat wrapped in velvet. When she protests she has a shift, he doesn't blink, offering to buy out her whole week. Never let anyone tell you your time is not. Picture this. The guy tilts his head, studying her with the dark, quiet focus of a predator, who already knows the hunt is over. He doesn't raise his voice, he just tells her, point blank, that she is going to say yes. The only real mystery is how long she'll make him wait. Every single alarm bell in Emma's head is deafening, screaming at her to turn and run from this shadowed underworld. But what does she do? She actually whispers okay. Absolute madness. Dante flashes this heavy, dark smile, telling her to go home, lock her doors, and keep her mouth shut. Back in her tiny apartment, sleep is a ghost. She just stares up at the cracked ceiling, the weight of his burning gaze still searing her skin. It really goes to show sometimes your gut drags you straight into the fire, even when your brain is begging you to run. Stick with me here, because this is where the lines start to blur. She's pacing the floor, obsessing over the literal blood off his collar that he brushed off like it was nothing. Then at 2:47 in the morning, her phone lights up in the dark. An unknown number asking if her doors are locked. Boom. He already has her number. He knows where she sleeps, where she breathes. Any sane person would be dialing the cops. But our girl? She types out a simple yes. His reply comes instantly, good girl, now go to sleep. Her hands are shaking violently, but she is lying there grinning like she just won the lottery. Just because the most dangerous man in the city praised her. Validation is a powerful drug, but seeking it from a walking tragedy? That's a dangerous game. Her mind is entirely scrambled, caught in his web. She finally crashes just as the sun bleeds through the blinds, her dreams haunted by that dangerous smile. The next day is a heavy, exhausted blur. She drags herself through her catering shift on pure autopilot. Her boss, Rita, takes one long look at her pale face and asks if she's seen a ghost. Emma lies, blaming it on a bad night's sleep. Rita isn't buying it for a second, but she lets it slide. Honestly, what is Emma supposed to say? That she is the new obsession of a ruthless mob boss? The lesson here is a heavy one. Keeping a massive, world-altering secret will always carve itself right into your face, no matter how desperately you try to wear a mask. Then, right at 6 in the evening, her phone buzzes again. The countdown to chaos has officially begun, and there's no stopping it now. The message on Emma's cracked screen was brief. The car arrives at 7:30. Wear something nice. She stood there, staring down at her grease-stained uniform, the scent of stale fry oil clinging to her skin. Her closet offered nothing but worn threads and thrift store ghosts, nothing meant for a billionaire's world. But the city is full of surprises. At 7:15, a sharp knock cut through the quiet. An elegant woman stood in the hallway, holding 3 designer garment bags and a heavy makeup case, announcing that Mr. Moretti sent her. The silk and velvet were hers to keep. You and I know how heavy the world will feel. But the truth is, immense wealth can silence a problem before a single tear has the chance to fall. The stylist, a woman named Sophia, brushed past Emma with the cold efficiency of an assassin. She tossed the heavy garment bags onto the frayed quilt, declaring they had exactly 45 minutes to perform a miracle. What followed was a beautiful, dizzying chaos. Sophia transformed that cramped, leaky bathroom into a high-end salon. When Emma finally stood before the cracked mirror, the breath caught in her throat. An emerald green dress hugged her every curve, wrapping her in silk that cost more than her car. She looked exposed, yet remarkably dangerous. It is a strange magic, stepping into a different skin sometimes. Putting on a brand new version of yourself is exactly what you need to finally unlock the quiet power you had all along. Emma was a vision, her lips fuller, her eyes dark and fierce. She was no longer just a diner waitress, she was a woman who could hold her own in the twisted shadows of the Mafia. Sophia whispered a soft compliment and vanished. At 7:30, the black sedan was waiting. The ride to Lucia's was a blur of neon lights. Inside, the hostess offered a look that could freeze water, judging Emma from head to toe. But then the shadows parted and Dante appeared, a tailored black suit, no tie, looking like a man who wrote the rules of sin. His presence alone sucked the air from the room. Listeners, the world will always try to judge your cover, but it is the raw, unapologetic energy you bring into a room that forces them to bow. Dante moved through the room like smoke, looking like pure Italian wool wrapped around violence and grace. Every head turned, women breaking their necks just to catch a glimpse, but the mob boss had eyes as only for her. He reached out, his thumb tracing the delicate bones of her knuckles, and the air between them practically hummed. He smiled that dangerous smile, leaning in to whisper that he knew she would choose the green one. The man wore his arrogance like a crown. He guided her into a hidden room in the back, where shadows danced on the walls and the wine was already breathing. Let us think about that for a moment together. When a man offers you choices, but already knows exactly what you will pick, he is paying true attention. The air in the private room was thick enough to choke on. Emma was practically trembling as Dante pulled out her chair, telling her to relax because he did not bite. The anxiety took the wheel, and she blurted out that the streets said otherwise. She closed her eyes, waiting for the storm, but instead, a dark, gravelly laugh spilled from his chest. It was a beautiful, terrifying sound. He leaned in, his voice dropping as he admitted to doing horrific, unspeakable things. Yet, he swore he would do them all again to protect his blood. He told her she was the only one who looked at him like a man, not a monster. Here is the quiet truth of the night. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give a broken soul is just treating them like a normal human being. He stared at her with eyes that had seen too much cold earth, confessing how terribly rare it was to just be seen as a man. Then he leaned back and asked for her story, and he was not the kind of man who accepted silence, so Emma let the walls crumble. She spoke of her grandmother rolling cannolis in the flour dust, of pulling double shifts until her bones ached, and sending her last dollars to a mother who never even called. She laid bare her crushing debt and the endless quiet grind of poverty. And the terrifying king of the underworld just listened. He held her gaze, making her feel like the rest of the earth had burned away. The lesson here is profound. Real respect is not bought with diamonds, it is earned through absolute undivided attention. As her tragic words faded into the quiet room, Dante leaned forward and delivered a heavy truth. He told her she had no idea the power that lived inside her bones. Emma tried to laugh it off, claiming she was barely keeping her head above water. But Dante stopped her cold. He told her the heirs in his bloody world were handed their empires, but she had fought a war for every single breath. Her daily survival made her far more dangerous than any mob prince. But before the weight of his words could settle, his phone shattered the moment. The romantic spell cracked. His eyes turned to absolute ice, the ruthless boss stepping back into his skin. Remember this tonight. True strength is never built in comfort. It is forged in the relentless fire of everyday survival. The temperature in the room plummeted. Dante paced the shadows, firing off rapid, vicious Italian into his phone. Emma only understood a few whispered words from her childhood, but she heard blood, death, and betrayal clear as a bell. The tender man who had just looked into her soul was gone, replaced by a ruthless ghost. He snapped his phone shut, ordering his right-hand man to take her back to the shadows of her street. He crossed the room, taking her face in both of his large, warm hands. His voice was a deadly command. Lock your doors and do not open them for a single soul. You and I know that ignoring a warning is a fool's game. When the dark tells you to turn the deadbolt and hide from the storm, you do not ask questions, you just survive. He pressed a desperate kiss to her forehead and vanished into the night, leaving the scent of gunpowder in his wake. Emma was entirely undone. She rode back to her neighborhood in a daze, falling onto her mattress while still wearing that haunting emerald dress. The silence of the apartment was deafening. Then, at exactly 3:17 in the morning, the screen glowed. He asked if the locks were turned. She typed yes, and he apologized for leaving her in the cold. When she asked if he was okay, he gave a brutal, honest no. Against all logic, she sent a risky text, asking if he was at least safe. The quiet that followed was absolute torture. We all learn this the hard way, but worrying over a dangerous soul is the ultimate thief of sleep. The glow of her phone pierced the darkness when his reply finally arrived. He told her to let it go, insisting he was a ruined man, not worth the ache in her chest. But Emma was done running. She typed fiercely, refusing to let him build that wall. Demanding that he let her into the dark, he simply replied, "Go to sleep, sweetheart. We will face the dawn together." But the dawn brought only chaos. Right at 7 in the morning, a violent banging rattled her cheap wooden door. She pressed her eye to the peephole and found a terrifyingly elegant woman with a gaze that could shatter stone, demanding to speak about her brother. "Let me tell you something true. When you ignore the sirens in the night, you usually wake up to a hurricane knocking at your door by sunrise." Emma forced her voice past the terror in her throat, asking the stranger to identify herself. The woman offered a smile so sharp it could cut bone. "Gabriella Morady, the sister of the devil himself." She announced they had a monumental problem to discuss. When Emma tried to play the innocent card, Gabriella tore it to shreds, listing every shocking move Dante had made. The velvet dresses, the impossible table at Lucia's, the way he rearranged his entire bloody empire just to hear her voice. For 15 years, the man had been entirely cold, and now he was staring at a screen waiting for her words. Here is the beautiful, terrifying truth of the midnight hours. When a man with the world on his shoulders drops it all just to stand by you, his heart is completely hooked. Emma stumbled over her words, swearing to the heavy wooden door that she had not planned a single second of this chaos. But Gabriella did not care about quiet intentions. She was a woman who only measured the brutal weight of results. She threatened to splinter the door into pieces if Emma did not open it. Shake like a leaf, Emma slid the chain away. The sister stepped into the dismal studio apartment like a storm, her eyes stripping the peeling paint bare. She demanded to know how long Emma had known the boss of the underworld. When Emma whispered 3 days, Gabriella looked like she had seen a ghost. A heart frozen for a decade, thawed in 72 hours. Listen to me closely tonight. The most profound, life-altering connections do not need years to grow. They can ignite in a single heartbeat. Turn the dial down low, listeners. You and I are stepping right into the heavy air of a standoff tonight. Gabriella does not mince words. She tells Emma that if this is a game, it ends with Emma buried. No quick exit, just a permanent one. But fear does funny things to a person. Instead of breaking, Emma finds an iron spine she never knew she had, swearing she is totally in the dark. Gabriella laughs a bitter sound and lays out the tragic truth. Her brother Dante is a walking ruin. Pointing at Emma's thrift store couch, she warns that Emma's far too fragile to survive a man built for war. Right as the air turns unbreathable, the phone buzzes. The truth is, friends, you should never swim in the deep end if you do not respect the monsters hiding at the bottom. Both women stand frozen, staring at the phone on the counter. The name Dante flashes across the screen like a warning siren in the dark. Gabriella snaps an order to put him on speaker. Emma is shaking, barely holding the device. Before she can force out a word, Dante's voice crashes through, vibrating with raw fury. He already knows his sister is there. Gabriella snatches the phone, shouting that she is trying to save this girl from his poisoned world. Dante unleashes a roar so violent that Emma stumbles backward, screaming at his sister to get out before he drives over and removes her himself. Gabriella shoves the phone back, hisses one last threat, and slams the door hard enough to rattle the windows. It goes to show, you never step between family, especially when that family deals in blood and anger. The second the door clicks shut, the storm inside Danny completely breaks. His voice drops into an achingly soft whisper, asking if she is all right. Emma falls back onto her faded cushions, the adrenaline draining out of her bones, and asks the heaviest question of the night. What exactly are they doing? The silence on the line stretches out. He confesses he has no earthly idea, only that his body physically refuses to walk away. Emma whispers that his sister thinks he will destroy her. And here is the tragedy, Dante agrees. He admits everything he touches turns to ash, telling her she deserves a life bathed in sunlight, not his endless midnight. Emma swallows hard and replies, "What if I do not want better?" Listeners, when a broken soul warns you they are dangerous, it is always a wise choice to believe them the very first time. Think about this. Even when Dante calls her an absolute fool, his voice is wrapped in undeniable warmth. He admits he is the biggest fool of all, because he simply cannot let her go. He abruptly tells her he is planting armed men outside her building, shutting down her protests before they start. He just needs to know she is safe. And then the line goes dead. Emma sits alone in her wrinkled dress, staring at the peeling wallpaper. 2 days ago, she was just a tired caterer stretching $12 to Friday. Now, she is caught in the magnetic orbit of a ruthless kingpin. Her mind screams at her to pack a bag and vanish. But then the screen lights up, a text from him, asking to make up for the chaos with dinner tonight. The hard truth about human nature? Sometimes the thrill of the unknown is simply too intoxicating to walk away from. Let me paint the scene for you. Emma finally takes a breath, stops playing it safe, and texts the devil himself to come get her. Sometimes the biggest risk you can ever take is leaving the quiet misery of your comfort zone. The clock strikes 7, and Dante is there. But the polished Mafia prince is gone. Tonight he is wearing dark jeans and a black shirt that hugs his broad shoulders in a way that feels almost criminal. A worn leather jacket hangs off his arm. Without the expensive armor, he looks younger, feral, and dangerously off the leash. His dark hair is still damp from the shower, carrying the scent of expensive spice and terrible life choices. Emma cannot even form a thought. She just stands there, completely breathless, as those piercing eyes lock onto hers, and he softly asks if she is ready for the ride. Emma grabs that same worn-out purse she has been carrying around for 3 years and walks out the door. You would assume she would be paralyzed by terror, right? But here is the thing about courage. It is often just curiosity speaking a little louder than your fear. Instead of his usual armored car, a sleek black Audi sits waiting at the curb. Dante opens the passenger door like an old-school gentleman, making sure she is settled. When he slides behind the wheel, he does not turn the key. He just sits there in the shadows, gripping the leather wheel until his knuckles turn white. Finally, the silence breaks. He admits Gabriella crossed a line, but insists she was only trying to protect Emma. When Emma quietly asks who she needs protecting from, Dante slowly turns, giving her a look so incredibly heavy it could shatter the glass between them. Staring into the dark, Dante tells her straight up that she is the least dangerous soul he has ever known. So Emma pushes back, asking why his family treats her like a loaded weapon. He lets out a slow breath and drops the bitter truth. She is a threat, just not the kind that uses bullets. You see, sometimes the people who alter our lives forever are simply the ones who offer us a quiet place to rest. He reaches across the console, his rough fingers weaving perfectly through hers. His voice cracks as he confesses that she makes him hunger for a life he buried long ago. Safe, quiet, ordinary things that have no place in his brutal reality. Emma feels her chest to tighten, her breathing going shallow. The ruthless boss of the underworld is sitting in a parked car, quietly begging for a future where his hands are finally clean of violence. The engine finally roars to life. Feeling the shift in the air, Emma softly asks what he actually is. Dante does not flinch. He casually labels himself a monster who happens to have exceptional taste in bakery sweets. There is a strange beauty in that kind of honesty. Owning the darkest parts of your soul is the first real step toward changing them, even if you wear a crown of crime. Emma opens her mouth to argue, but the rigid tension across his broad shoulders warns her to stay quiet. They drive in heavy silence for 20 minutes, leaving the bright city behind for a decaying, forgotten industrial zone. It is pure nightmare territory, full of broken streetlights and hollow warehouses. Her stomach drops, panic rising in her throat. But Dante glances over, his eyes fierce and steady. He asks for her trust, promising that in this darkness she is entirely safe. Standing in the middle of this freezing, abandoned alley, Emma really thinks this might be where her story ends. But life has a wicked sense of humor, hiding its most breathtaking magic behind the ugliest doors. Dante guides her toward a rusted entrance, rapping his knuckles against the metal in a rhythmic sequence. Heavy locks grind open, and the quiet night is instantly shattered by the wail of live jazz. The sketchy alley was nothing but an illusion. Inside is a spectacular, golden-lit speakeasy straight out of the Roaring '20s. We are talking plush burgundy velvet, heavy smoke in the dim lights, and a mahogany bar dripping with old money. It feels incredibly intimate, wildly elegant, and without a single doubt, completely illegal. Emma just stands there, the breath knocked out of her lungs, asking what kind of hidden world she just stepped into. Dante leans down, his voice barely a murmur over the jazz, and tells her this is a sanctuary where no one asks questions. Instead of taking the seat across the table, he slides into the curved booth right beside her, pressing his thigh warm against hers. He casually mentions that he owns the building. Mostly it is for family business, but Thursday nights belong to the music. An older, smiling waitress ambles over, patting the feared Mafia Don on the shoulder like he is just a boy from the neighborhood. You and I know the truth how a man treats the people serving him, tells you everything about his character. He orders his dark liquor and wine for Emma, whose nerves are absolutely frayed. Studying the sharp angles of his jaw in the golden shadows, she takes a deep breath and asks exactly how much of this sprawling, shadowy city actually belongs to him. He slowly stretches his arm along the back of the velvet booth, his fingertips barely tracing the edge of her shoulder. He asks, with heavy caution in his eye, if she truly wants the burden of knowing. When Emma gives a small nod, the lover fades and the boss takes over. He maps out the clean money first, the restaurants, the construction crews, the cargo ships paying honest wages, but every grand empire is built on a foundation with deep, ugly cracks. He drops his gaze, admitting the shadow side of the coin. The underground bets, the forced muscle, the heavy loans. He explains that doing the unforgivable is the only way to keep the machine running and his people breathing. His father cemented this throne with bone and blood. And when the old man died, Dante was handed the keys to a terrifying kingdom he never actually asked to rule. The music slows down as Dante explains the crushing weight of his reality. At 22 years old, he was suddenly the only thing standing between 300 loyal people and absolute ruin. Yes, he commits horrible sins, but those sins put food on the tables of his crew. Responsibility is a crown made of thorns, and sometimes, choosing the dark path is the only way to shield the ones behind you. Emma softly asks if the guilt eats at him, and his voice completely splinters. He confesses he drowns in regret every single morning. He looks at her, eyes pleading, telling her that if she values her life, she needs to stand up and run. But Emma just anchors herself to the seat. Her heart is hammering against her ribs, but she flat out refuses to abandon him. Dante stares at her, his expression a devastating collision of absolute desperation and starving hunger. The space between them vanishes. Dante leans in dangerously close, his rough palm coming up to cradle her jaw, his thumb brushing a trembling path across her lower lip. He whispers against her skin that she has no earthly idea what she is doing to his mind, that his thoughts just shatter when she is near. He rests his heavy forehead against hers, admitting he has buried grown men for making him feel even a fraction of this terrifying weakness. But true vulnerability is the only soil where real trust can grow. He confesses that his need to kiss her is tearing him apart, but he knows if he takes a single taste, he will consume her whole. He whispers she deserves a gentle, slow romance, but Emma is completely done with waiting. She closes the final inch, capturing his mouth, pouring every bit of her chaotic, desperate fear into a kiss that changes the rules forever. For a split second, Dante freezes. The world around them stops. Then a low, agonizing groan escapes him, and he completely surrenders to the kiss. He weaves one hand deep into her hair, his other hand gripping her waist, pulling her flush against his chest. He kisses her the way a drowning man takes his very first breath of air, desperate, fractured, clinging to life. Emma holds on to his shirt like it is the only anchor keeping her tethered to the earth. You and I know how that feels, don't we? To lose yourself entirely. Sometimes giving up your desperate hold on control is the only way to actually feel alive. When they finally break apart, gasping for air, Dante's eyes are pitch black, swarming with hunger. But then the walls slam back down. He steps away, voice rough, and tells her the kiss was a grave mistake. Emma stands there, paralyzed by the sudden rejection. Dante looks at her with raw agony, admitting it was a mistake because now he knows exactly what she tastes like, and he will never stop craving her. He backs away, his posture putting miles of cold, emotional distance between them. He says he needs to do the one decent thing he has managed all night, take her home before he loses his own fight. Setting boundaries is painful, especially when your soul screams for the opposite. But those lines keep us safe. Emma wants to scream, to demand why he keeps reeling her in just to banish her to the cold. But he looks so utterly shattered that she swallows her pride. The drive back to her apartment is suffocating, heavy with unspoken longing and quiet heartbreak. They finally pull up to the shadow of her apartment building. Dante does not kill the engine, he just sits there, gripping the leather steering wheel so tightly, His knuckles shine white under the streetlights. The silence is incredibly heavy. At last, he confesses that he cannot see her for a few days. The syndicate is calling, and he has dangerous, violent business to handle. It is a harsh truth we all have to learn. You can never truly outrun your past, no matter how fast you drive. He promises, his voice thick with quiet desperation, that his man Marco will be watching her building day and night. He is trying to protect the one pure thing left in his life, even if he has to break his own heart to do it. Let me paint the scene for you. Emma rushes into her apartment, her heart hammering wildly against her ribs. She throws the deadbolt, slides down the cold wood, and begs her lungs to just breathe. 3 days. She tells herself she only needs to survive 3 days of this quiet, but life rarely honors our desperate plans. Barely 18 hours pass before her illusion of safety shatters. She is at the restaurant the next afternoon, covered in flour, when Rita bursts into the kitchen, pale as a ghost. Marco is waiting out front, and he is clearly armed. Emma steps out, and there he stands, a cold, tailored enforcer. The lesson here is brutally simple. You can hide from the truth for a little while, but you can never outrun the consequences of who you choose to let into your heart. The atmosphere in that restaurant is thick with unspoken terror. The regular workers are giving Marco a very wide berth, their eyes glued to the floor. Emma feels the chill immediately and demands to know what is going on. Marco does not sugarcoat a single word. His voice is dead serious as he reveals she was followed all morning by strangers. Emma feels the blood drain from her face. Marco tells her she is being moved to a safe house immediately, at least until Dante can clean the blood from the streets. Emma weakly protests about her shift, but Marco cuts her off. These enemies just want to use her to break Dante. Listen to me carefully when danger finally arrives at your doorstep. You have to drop the illusion of your normal routine and face the harsh reality in front of you. They want to destroy Dante, and Emma is nothing but the bait, a pawn in a vicious game. Her hands are shaking so badly she can barely make a fist. Rita, trembling by the stoves, whispers for Emma to just go and stay alive. Marco gives no room for debate. He grips her arm, rushing her out the back alley and into the heavy doors of a black SUV. Waiting inside is Tony, a quiet soldier with a jagged scar stretching across his jaw. Marco slides in and orders her to hold on. The next 20 minutes are a violent blur of burning rubber and sharp, terrifying turns through the city. Sometimes, the only way to survive the chaos of life is to buckle in, trust the hardened people protecting you, and pray you make it through the storm in one piece. Emma holds onto the door handle with white knuckles, watching her world smear into a terrifying blur. The vehicle eventually stops at a towering, glass high-rise in an untouchable district. Marco swipes a key card, taking her straight up to the penthouse. The space is breathtaking: walls of glass, marble counters, absolute silence. But luxury is completely invisible when your heart is hammered by fear. Emma can barely pull air into her lungs. Marco explains the security is airtight, promising Dante will arrive soon. When she asks how long it will be, Marco turns grim. Dante is handling the threat. The hardest lesson to learn is that all the money and beautiful things in the world cannot buy you a single ounce of genuine peace when your life is on the line. We all know what handling it really means. Dante is out in the dark, hunting the shadows who dared to look at her. Emma collapses onto the velvet couch, her entire body trembling. Marco places a cheap burner phone on the glass table. One button, one number. He strictly forbids her from calling anyone else, cutting her final tie to the outside world. Then the heavy door clicks shut, leaving her utterly alone in a golden cage. She sits there, imagining the blood Dante is spilling just to keep her breathing. After an agonizing wait, she presses the single button. Dante answers on the very first ring. Let me tell you something important. True love, the kind that survives the darkest nights, is always waiting on the other end of the line when you finally find the courage to call. His voice is a low rumble, speaking her name like a prayer. Emma breaks, confessing she is completely lost in this nightmare. Through the static, Dante sounds entirely gutted. He whispers a raw apology, swearing he never wanted to drag her into his darkness, even as the horrifying sound of a man screaming echoes in the background. He orders her to stay away from the glass. When she begs to know who is hunting her, the silence stretches out, cold and heavy. He confesses his enemies are using her to rip his empire apart. Emma realizes the warnings were right all along. Yet Dante swears, with chilling ferocity, that he will burn the city down to protect her. A painful truth in life is that when you choose the fire, you must be prepared to face the ashes it leaves behind. Dante cuts off mid-sentence, demanding she stay hidden before the line goes dead. Emma is left standing in the silent room, clutching the phone, her mind spiraling. What does whatever it takes truly look like for a man who rules the underworld? She knows the violence coiled just beneath his skin. The agonizing doubt creeps in, was that one desperate kiss the mistake that will cost her everything? The hours drag out like rusted chains. She paces the beautiful carpets of her cage, a wild animal trapped in gold. As the sun bleeds across the sky in violent red, she disobeys orders and drifts to the window. The city lights stretch out below her, cold and indifferent. It is a vital lesson sometimes our profound loneliness pushes us toward the very dangers we were told to avoid. 3 agonizing days after their paths first crossed, the private elevator dings, Emma's blood runs cold. Survival instinct takes over. She grabs a heavy crystal vase, clutching it tight, ready to fight. The steel doors slide open, and Dante steps out. A wave of relief crashes over her, but vanishes the second she sees him. His expression is carved stone, his knuckles are split open, raw and dripping blood onto the marble. He looks exactly like the monster they say he is. She asks if he is hurt, but he says nothing. He simply crosses the room, gently pries the weapon from her trembling hands, and crushes her to his chest. The lesson is quiet, but true fear and love can exist in the exact same heartbeat, constantly fighting for control of your soul. Emma buries her face in his shirt, her fingers tangling in the fabric. You and I know that scent, the bitter smell of gunpowder, copper, blood, and pure danger. She feels his heart raging like a drum against her cheek. She begs him to tell her what he did in the shadows. Dante pulls back, his large hands framing her pale face, and coldly states the threat is handled. But the truth is much darker. He confesses that the men in his world have no morals, no boundaries, and absolutely no mercy. Because they know her face. Her old life is officially dead. She can never go back to her quiet apartment. Not until every enemy is buried. The hard truth of life is that some doors, once walked through, lock forever behind you. You can never return to the innocent life you once knew. The bottom falls out of Emma's stomach, leaving nothing but cold dread. Dante stares deep into her eyes, declaring she must stay with him. He admits it is a cruel demand, but it is the only way to guarantee she keeps breathing. When she asks how long, the answer clearly tortures him. Days, maybe weeks. He rests his heavy forehead against hers, making a solemn vow to shield her at any cost. Every rational instinct screams at her to run from this violent world. Instead, the fight leaves her exhausted body, and she whispers a quiet, surrendered agreement. Dante exhales, a monster finally finding peace. Sometimes the most profound lesson we ever learn is that the only place to find true safety is wrapped in the arms of the very danger we fear. Dante whispers his reply, his voice thick with something unspoken. He pulls her in for this incredibly soft, desperate kiss before stepping back into the shadows. He tells her he needs to wash the blood off his hands, and then they are going to have a real talk. As he disappears into the bedroom, Emma collapses onto the velvet couch. This is her reality now, hidden away, guarded by a man who is equally terrifying and completely magnetic, waiting for the other shoe to drop. She should be running out the front door. But deep down there is this heavy, agonizing certainty tying her to this spot. She is falling for him, even if he burns her world down. When Dante walks back out in just sweatpants, the truth hits hard. If you choose to ignore every bright red flag, you better brace yourself for the hurricane. His hair is still damp, and for a split second, the heavy armor around him seems to drop. He walks right into that high-end kitchen, pulling out flour, eggs, and ricotta cheese. Emma is totally lost, asking what on earth he is doing at this hour. He meets her gaze with these strikingly vulnerable eyes, and admits he is trying to make cannoli, his late mother's recipe, but he just can get it right, and he knows Emma can. She slowly walks over, and he confesses he just wants to pretend they are normal people having a quiet night. Emma's heart just shatters for him. She takes the flour, and they start baking in this heavy, beautiful silence, her hands guiding his. Here is the truth you need to hear. Sometimes, holding on to a simple, quiet moment is the only way to survive a life built on violence and sorrow. They stand there in the dim light, rolling out dough in a rhythm that feels almost like a prayer. It's mindless and soothing, a temporary shield against the dark world outside. Then, out of nowhere, Dante's voice breaks the quiet. He tells her how his mother passed away from cancer when he was just 12 years old. How his father lost his mind, drowned himself in liquor, and turned into a nightmare. By 15, Dante was literally running the syndicate because his father was utterly broken. He looks right at Emma, eyes completely hollow, and says he isn't asking for pity. He didn't choose the darkness, but he absolutely chose to survive it, and survival meant becoming the monster. Life leaves its scars on all of us, Trauma might forge you into iron, but it never excuses the cruel things you do in the dark. Let's look at this piece by piece, shall we? Dante stops everything, looking her dead in the eye, and confesses to the terrible things he did tonight. His voice is cold, admitting he hurts people without a second of hesitation when they threaten what is his. Emma swallows down her fear and asks the heaviest question of all. She asks if she belongs to him now. Dante doesn't flinch. He tells her she has been his since the very first moment she walked into his office. Any sane person would sprint for the nearest exit. But Emma? She steps right into his space, flour coating her trembling hands, and whispers that she isn't scared of the monster inside him. He warns her that she should be. The lesson? The scariest monsters aren't hiding under the bed. Sometimes they are the ones we willingly invite into our hearts. Picture this moment hanging entirely by a thread. Emma rises up on her toes, whispering that he should regret her, her breath ghosting across his lips. That single sentence is the spark that detonates the powder keg. Dante's iron composure completely shatters. He pulls her up onto the cold kitchen counter, stepping right between her knees with a desperate hunger. His hands are everywhere, gripping her waist like she is the only thing keeping him from drowning. Emma clings to his broad shoulders, pouring all her fear and irrational certainty into this one chaotic kiss. When they finally break apart, chests heaving in the quiet room, Dante rests his heavy forehead against hers. He growls that this is a terrible idea, warning her she is going to hate him. But love, real love, rarely cares if the idea is good or bad. He insists she is going to end up hating him, and she just smiles up at him, whispering, "Good." Dante actually laughs. It is this raw, gravelly sound that feels totally alien coming from a ruthless enforcer. He kisses her again, but this time it is agonizingly slow. He kisses her like a man fully aware he is falling off a cliff, entirely uncaring about the jagged rocks below. Emma's logical brain is begging her to escape, but she answers his kiss with everything she has. Listen to me on this one. Sometimes the most dangerous move you can make is the exact thing your weary soul is begging for, even if your heart demands a killer who bakes pastries in the dead of night. They are so ridiculously consumed by each other that they completely ignore the oven until the smoke alarm starts shrieking through the penthouse. The smoke alarm is shrieking, and Dante is cursing in rapid, breathless Italian. He yanks the hot tray out, tossing the completely ruined, blackened cannoli straight into the sink, while Emma wildly waves a towel at the ceiling. When the agonizing noise finally dies, they just stare at each other in the quiet before bursting into raw, uncontrollable laughter. It is that soul-deep kind of laugh, like pulling in oxygen after drowning in the dark. Dante pulls her tight against his chest, and she just breathes in his scent. They skip the takeout entirely. Instead, these two sit in the dim light, eating raw dough. Dante finally drops his armor, sharing painful memories. The real lesson here? True intimacy is built in the quiet moments when the masks finally slip away entirely. Emma matches his quiet vulnerability, telling him stories about her grandmother and learning to cook in a tiny kitchen, filled with the heavy scent of oregano. They talk in the shadows until the morning sun bleeds through the curtains, and Emma can barely keep her eyes open. Dante gently pushes her hair back, telling her it is time to sleep. When she offers to take the sofa, he immediately shuts it down. He cups her face, his gaze incredibly intense, and promises he meant what he said about taking this slow. Emma stares back and challenges him, asking what happens if she is already ready. His eyes turn completely black, but he steps back. He kisses her forehead, vowing to stay right outside the door. You and I both know the truth here. True strength isn't about taking what you want. It is about having the power to wait. Emma wants to fight him on it, but she's running on absolute fumes. She lets Dante guide her into his master suite, a room dominated by a massive, untouched bed. She collapses onto the mattress, fully clothed, breathing in the lingering scent of his expensive cologne before instantly blacking out. Fast forward 10 hours. She jolts awake to the terrifying sound of aggressive yelling bleeding through the walls. Afternoon sunlight is blindingly bright. The shouting match in the living room is turning vicious. She hears Dante's voice, vibrating with murderous rage, and an older man barking venom right back. Here is the harsh truth about peace. When you live in a world built on violence, the quiet moments are always just a brief illusion before the real storm finally hits. Welcome back to the Midnight Hour. Tonight we step right into a room heavy with unspoken violence. Dante stands dead center, entirely immovable, facing down an older man with silver hair and eyes like frozen steel. A custom suit wraps this stranger in undeniable Mafia authority. He spits out that Dante is a fool for dragging a fragile civilian into their bloody world. But Dante snaps back, his voice a low rumble of thunder, claiming her under his absolute protection. The older boss just offers a hollow, scraping laugh. He warns Dante that he has just painted a massive target on her back, giving every enemy the perfect weapon to break him. Dante's stare does not waver a single fraction. He whispers that they will die trying, just like the others did last night. In life, love always demands the highest toll. The silver-haired boss invades Dante's space, the air turning suffocatingly thick. He asks if Dante understands the blood price of starting a turf war for a girl he has known for a mere 3 days. Hidden behind the heavy oak door, Emma feels the warmth drain from her veins. A literal war, fought in the shadows, all for her. Dante's voice shifts into something chilling and smooth, murmuring that the cost means absolutely nothing because no one touches what is his. The old man sneers, calling him soft, but Dante simply says she makes him human. Then comes the brutal verdict. The family voted to exile her. Dante rejects it with a single deadpan refusal. He invites any man who objects to face him directly. Sometimes, true devotion means burning down the whole world just to keep one person warm. You and I have both seen how pride can blind a man. Vincent locks eyes with Dante, accusing him of betraying his bloodline for a stranger, but Dante remains an absolute fortress. He refuses to sacrifice an innocent soul to the wolves merely to stroke his own ego. Desperate, Vincent weaponizes the memory of Dante's deceased father, claiming the old man would be sick with shame. It is a fatal miscalculation. Dante's gaze turns to pure frost. He dismisses his father as a drunken traitor, stating that if a man like that feels ashamed, Dante is on the right path. Vincent is left choking on empty air, retreating to the elevator. The doors slide shut, sealing a suffocating quiet into the penthouse. Emma steps out, trembling. Standing up to the ghosts of our past is the only way we truly become free. Emma whispers his name into the quiet room. Dante whips around, the lingering violence in his stare making her shrink back. But the instant he sees her, the ruthless boss vanishes. He closes the distance in a heartbeat, wrapping her in a desperate embrace. Trembling, she confesses she heard every word. Terrified, he sparked a gang war for her. Dante smooths her hair, his deep voice correcting her gently. He did not start a war, he eliminated a threat. The rival brothers had been hunting her, plotting to use her life as a pawn. He admits without a shred of remorse that he ended them to keep her breathing. Emma can barely draw air as she asks about the furious man who just left. It was Vincent Russo, his father's closest friend. In this brutal life, we learn that the deepest cuts always come from those closest to our history. Dante explains that Vincent believes he still pulls the strings, demanding she be hidden away like a secret until the violence settles. Trying to be rational, Emma softly suggests the old man might have a point. Dante rejects the idea instantly. His grip tightens as he vows she will not be sent away unless she chooses to leave. He is handing her the keys to walk away. Every instinct in her mind screams to run from this blood-stained world. But then she looks into his eyes. Beneath the hardened exterior of a killer, she sees a deeply broken man, holding onto her as if she is his final tether to sanity. She whispers that she wants to stay. The absolute wave of relief that washes over him is staggering. He kisses her with a desperate hunger, resting his forehead against hers. We all crave that one anchor in the storm. Sometimes, staying is the bravest choice you can make. With his forehead pressed to hers, Dante makes a solemn vow. He declares that she belongs with him now, and he will shield her against the entire world. But the heavy tension shatters when a phone starts vibrating violently. They both freeze. Dante assumes his right-hand man brought her purse up to the penthouse. Emma digs the phone out, and all the blood leaves her face. It is her mother. 2 solid weeks of silence since Emma last transferred her monthly living allowance, and now she is calling. Emma answers, only to be hit with a wall of sheer panic. The landlord reported her missing, and a coworker gossiped about her, leaving with a mysterious stranger. Emma forces her voice to stay perfectly level, insisting everything is fine. Life has a cruel way of dragging our old baggage into our new beginnings, right when we least expect it to surface. Emma attempts to laugh it off, claiming she is just crashing at a friend's place. But her mother strikes a brutal nerve, snapping that Emma has no friends because she grinds herself to dust just to keep the family afloat. It is an agonizing truth. Emma fights to keep her voice from shaking, unaware that Dante is watching her with a gaze full of profound sorrow. The older woman presses harder, demanding to know if she is in danger. Emma's mind races. How do you casually mention that rival hitmen are hunting you to get to a mob boss? Instead, she softly admits that she met a man named Dante, and he is taking care of her. The silence humming through the speaker is deafening. Her mother is utterly paralyzed, reminding her that Emma never even lets anyone help her wash a dish. Sometimes the heaviest burdens are the ones we stubbornly refuse to let others carry. Her mother's voice rises, terrified that this unknown man is holding her against her will. Emma looks up, her eyes meeting Dante's. In the face of a man who commands an empire of violence, all she finds is tender, unfiltered concern. She tells her mother that Dante is keeping her safe from a darkness she could never comprehend, pleading for a single ounce of trust. After an agonizing pause, her mother yields but threatens to send the police if Emma misses a daily check-in. Emma ends the call, staring at the device like she wants to hurl it through the glass. Moving with quiet grace, Dante takes the phone and draws her against his chest. He murmurs that a mother's worry is natural. But Emma's voice cracks as she fires back that the worry never stops her from cashing the monthly checks. The painful truth is that a toxic love always comes with an invoice. Dante slowly guides her to the sofa and delivers a stark, heavy truth. He tells her, without a trace of hesitation, that she does not owe her mother a single drop of her soul. Listen closely, because we all need to hear this. Sharing a bloodline does not give anyone the right. Your spirit dry. Emma sags against his shoulder, her voice a fragile whisper as she admits her mother is the only family she has left. Dante simply tightens his arms around her and murmurs that she has him now. From a ruthless syndicate leader, those words should be a terrifying warning. But to her weary heart, it is the safest sanctuary on earth. They linger there, finding a rare peace in the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. But in the underworld, silence is just a countdown. His phone shatters the calm. He curses softly, the shadows returning. Peace is always a temporary guest. Dante paces the floor, firing off rapid, venomous Italian into the receiver. Emma only catches 3 distinct words, but they are enough to chill her to the bone. War, blood, and betrayal. The opulent warmth of the penthouse suddenly feels like a freezer as Dante turns back, wearing a gaze colder than death itself. He tells her he has to leave and will station his man, Marco, at the door to keep watch. But Emma finds a sudden, fierce spark of defiance. She refuses the gilded cage. She demands to go with him, tired of hiding while he wades through the darkness on her behalf. She wants to see the raw, brutal reality of the empire he rules. Stick with me here, because sometimes, stepping directly into the terrifying unknown is the exact moment we shed our comfortable illusions and finally learn how to survive. Dante violently shuts the idea down, warning her that the streets waiting outside are dripping with danger. But Emma holds her ground, delivering a line that strikes straight to his core. She tells him she would rather stand in the crossfire by his side than be perfectly safe but completely isolated. She begs him to stop shielding her and show her the real monster in the mirror. You can trace the agonizing conflict in his dark eyes, the war between keeping her pure and pulling her close. Finally, he surrenders. He lays down absolute rules. She stays glued to his side, and if the guns draw, she runs. He warns her that once she steps into his shadows, the innocent girl she was is gone forever. Emma does not even blink. True maturity is making a terrifying choice and embracing the permanent scars that come along with it. 20 minutes later, the heavy doors of a black Audi swallow them whole. Emma sits quietly in dark clothes Marco somehow smuggled out of her apartment. Beside her, Dante is coiled with tension, his jaw locked hard enough to crack stone. Up front, Marco navigates the roads while Tony sits with cold steel resting openly on his thighs. They roll up to an isolated warehouse surrounded by armed guards whose faces look carved from granite. As Emma steps out, their cold eyes lock onto her like she is a ghost. Dante simply weaves his fingers through hers, pulling her firmly against his side. They step inside, and the sheer scale of the underworld takes her breath away. Stacks of dirty money and endless crates of smuggled vice fill the cavernous space. It is a vivid reminder that the darkest truths are often hidden right beneath the surface of our everyday lives. The warehouse hums like a perfectly oiled machine, but the moment Dante steps onto the concrete floor, time stops. Every worker freezes. He barks a sharp order to get back to the grind, and the crew scatters like ants into the shadows. He guides Emma into a soundproof glass office, a quiet cage where he watches his empire breathe. With a calm voice, he drops the heavy truth. The booze upstairs is legal, but the underground gambling ring and the money laundering washing millions every month. Pure darkness. Emma feels the room spinning, struggling to process the weight of his confession. It is a harsh truth, my friends, that the most dangerous secrets in our lives are often hiding right there in plain sight, disguised perfectly as everyday routines. He leans against the mahogany desk, watching her reaction with the unblinking eyes of a hawk. He tells her straight up that this shadow world is his true identity. Those fancy restaurants and legitimate construction gigs? Just a fragile mask for the underground hustle that keeps his family fed and his rivals awake at night. Emma stares at the warehouse floor, asking if these everyday people know they are feeding a crime syndicate. Dante sighs, admitting the loyal ones know, while the rest are paid far too much to ever ask questions. Suddenly his phone shatters the quiet. He curses, his jaw tightening into iron. Someone is skimmed from the top. He orders Emma to stay safely hidden with Tony. You see, greed is a dangerous game, and taking what does not belong to you will always catch up to you in the bitter end. Dante explains that one of his most trusted lieutenants is the thief, and they need to have a little chat. Just the cold, hollow way he says that word makes Emma feel entirely sick to her stomach. Dante looks her dead in the eye, his gaze heavy with sorrow, and tells her this is the moment she must decide if she can stomach his reality. He freely admits he will deeply hurt a man for breaking his trust, and he will not feel an ounce of guilt. Every logical instinct in Emma is screaming at her to run, to go back to her quiet life and forget this nightmare. Instead, she holds her ground and demands to go with him. She wants to see the whole ugly truth. You and I must remember that running away from the darkest parts of reality never actually makes those shadows disappear. Dante is stunned, warning her she has no idea what kind of monster she is walking toward. But Emma steps right up to him, her eyes burning with fearless fire. She says she is not some fragile kid who will shatter just because the world shows its teeth. She knows how cruel life can be, but she needs to see the raw truth of what she is signing up for by staying in his arms. You can see the profound respect wash over his hardened face. He finally nods, his voice thick with emotion, telling her to speak up the second she needs to turn back. Emma agrees, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. He leads her to a heavy steel door opening into a pitch-black stairwell. Sometimes, you simply have to grab fear by the hand and walk straight into the dark to find your own truth. Welcome back, night owls. Let us step out of the warm studio and into the freezing dark. Picture a concrete basement, the kind of place where hope goes to die. A single bulb swings overhead, casting harsh shadows on a man tied to a chair. He looks about 40, but right now he is a terrified child. Two guards stare at Emma in shock, but Dante dismisses them with a single nod. The heavy, iron door clicks shut. Just the three of them now. The man is hyperventilating, choking on his own tears. He begs Dante for his life, rambling about why he stole $200,000 over the past 6 months. But fear is a terrible compass. Desperation pushes us to make the most foolish choices, blinding us to the heavy toll we eventually have to pay. Dante does not raise his voice. He does not have to. His tone is chillingly calm, almost gentle, and that quietness is far more terrifying than a scream. He simply asks the bleeding man how he ever believed he could steal from a mafia boss and walk away. The thief breaks, sobbing that his little girl needed expensive surgery. But Dante shatters that illusion instantly, reminding the man that he personally paid for that exact surgery 8 months ago. Cornered, the thief finally confesses the ugly truth. He was drowning in gambling debts, and very dangerous men were coming to collect. When pressed for a name, he drops a heavy one, Vincent Russo. It goes to show that spinning lies to cover your mistakes is just digging your own grave. You only end up buried alive in the dark. And there it is, the ghost in the machine. The very same Vincent who sat in their penthouse just this morning is the one pulling the strings. Dante goes entirely still. He demands to know if Vincent ordered the theft, but the thief swears it was his own bad bets. Vincent had simply offered to wipe the massive debt clean in exchange for one thing: details about Dante and the secret girl he was hiding. The temperature in that basement plummets. Before anyone can draw a breath, Dante lunges. He hoists the man by the throat, lifting him and the heavy wooden chair entirely off the concrete. Gasping for air, the traitor chokes out that he only said Dante was distracted by a woman. Trust is a fragile glass. Once you shatter it with betrayal, there is no putting the pieces back together. Dante lets go. The chair slams back onto the concrete with a sickening crack, leaving the man gasping violently for air. Dante just stands over him, his massive shoulders rising and falling, fists coiled tight enough to draw blood. In a whisper that cuts right to the bone, he orders the traitor to run. He gives him until midnight to vanish from Chicago entirely, promising that if one word of family business ever slips, he will hunt down everyone the man loves. The thief scrambles out of the ropes and bolts up the stairs. Emma watches the darkness swallow him, then turns to Dante, who is completely rigid. She softly points out that he just let a dead man walk. Mercy is a beautifully rare gift in a cruel world, and offering a second chance can change the course of a soul forever. The imposing Mafia boss is suddenly falling apart. Dante turns to Emma, his voice thick and raspy, the agony bleeding straight through his eyes. He admits the man just handed over information that put a target directly on her back. The only reason that traitor is still breathing, Dante confesses, is because Emma was watching, and he desperately needed to prove he is not just a monster. Emma steps right into his space and gently cradles his rough face in her hands. She tells him to drop the mask. He admits he still wants to tear the man apart, asking if the darkness inside him terrifies her. She looks him in the eye and admits she is terrified, but she is planting her feet right here. True love is not about finding perfection. It is about holding someone tightly through their darkest storms. Dante tries to pull away from her touch, warning her to run as fast and as far from him as she possibly can. But Emma anchors him right there. She tells him she is choosing this wild, chaotic life, and she is choosing every terrifying piece of him. He looks completely gutted, his voice breaking as he asks why an innocent woman would ever want a violent man who starts wars in the streets. She does not have a clean, logical answer. Instead, she gives him the raw truth. For the first time in her life, she feels awake. She feels like she actually matters, stepping out of the shadows of baking pastries and just surviving. We all spend so much time shrinking to fit into small spaces. But finding the one person who sees your genuine worth is the most vital step you will ever take. That confession breaks every defense he has left. Dante pulls her in, kissing her with a frantic, starving energy, like she is the absolute last breath of oxygen in a suffocating room. Emma pours every single ounce of her fear and her total certainty right back into him. When they finally part, he rests his heavy forehead against hers, fiercely promising she is worth every drop of blood he has to spill. But just as the world feels safe, her phone shatters the quiet. It is her mother, Emma answers, but her mother sounds hollow, whispering that a strange man is inside the house. Then, a completely different, smooth voice echoes through the speaker. Hold on to that thought with me, friends. Because disaster always kicks the door in, right when you finally feel like you can breathe. So let us unpack this nightmare together, piece by piece. The voice on the other end of the line belongs to Vincent Russo's, and he smoothly suggests that he and Emma need to discuss her future. The second Dante registers that voice, his face hardens into pure, absolute murder. He signals for her to put the phone on speaker. Vincent casually lays out his trap. He is sending a car, and Emma is going to get inside it alone. He frames it as a friendly chat about her place in the underworld, essentially forcing her to walk away from Dante to avoid a bloodbath. The sheer nerve of this man, calling to steal a king's queen right in front of him. You can feel the air turning to ice. Sometimes, the deepest betrayals come wearing a polite smile, teaching us that true monsters rarely hide in the shadows. Dante steps close to the phone, his voice dropping into a register that promises graves. He swears that if Vincent so much as looks at Emma's mother, he will burn his entire empire to the ground. But Vincent just lets out a dry, rattling chuckle. He claims he will not harm a soul. He only wants to show Emma the harsh reality of her choices. Comes the fatal blow. Vincent gives her exactly 15 minutes to step into his waiting car. If she refuses, well, her mother is sitting right there. And tragedies happen every day. The line goes dead. Emma stands frozen, her heart turning to lead. Dante instantly shifts into a warlord, barking violent orders to his men, but Emma cannot hear a word. We are often forced to choose between our past and our future, and those choices always demand a heavy sacrifice. Emma feels the floor completely fall away beneath her. Her knees buckle, the sheer weight of Vincent's ultimatum crashing down on her fragile shoulders. She is caught in the most agonizing trap a person can face. Torn between the man who finally made her feel alive and the deeply flawed mother who gave her life. The world starts spinning as the cold reality sets in if she stays with Dante. Her mother pays the ultimate price, but if she gets in that car, she is walking into a grave. Dante catches her before she hits the ground, his strong arms wrapping around her shaking frame. He is speaking, trying to anchor her, but the roaring in her ears is just too loud. Life has a cruel habit of pushing us right to the absolute edge, simply to find out what we are truly willing to endure for the people we love. Emma is violently trembling now, clinging to Dante as she asks the terrifying question, what if Vincent crosses the line anyway? But Dante does not flinch. His eyes are dead and hollow, in a voice made of absolute ice. He vows that if Vincent touches a single hair on her mother's head, he will slaughter everyone Vincent has ever cared about. Emma is completely frantic, begging to just get in the car as demanded. Dante shuts her down with a fierce, unbreakable refusal. His thumbs are flying across his phone, coordinating with his enforcer Marco to track the mother's device. But Emma is completely drowning in her own dread, convinced they will be too late. You and I both know how blinding fear can be. Panic never untangles the knot, it only makes it tighter. When the storm hits, breathing is your only weapon. The tears finally spill over as Emma completely breaks down. She confesses the painful truth her mother is selfish, constantly draining her savings without a single ounce of gratitude. But she is still her mother. And Emma absolutely refuses to let her die over a Mafia feud. No matter how deeply flawed or broken family can be, standing by the people who raised you is a heavy burden we all eventually carry. Dante sees her breaking. The lethal edge in his posture softens. He pulls her tightly against his chest, swearing on his very soul that he will bring her mother back alive. He just needs her to trust him. She grips his shirt, her mind racing. Can she truly hand her family's fate to a dangerous enforcer? But seeing the fierce devotion burning in his eyes, she slowly nods. Love requires a terrifying leap of faith. The exact second Emma whispers that she trusts him, Dante's phone lights up. His expression instantly hardens into carved stone. They found the location. Her mother is locked inside Vincent's fortified estate 20 minutes out. Emma's chest heaves with panic. But Dante slips right back into the ruthless boss she met days ago. He starts ordering 30 heavily armed men to surround the gates. Emma desperately grabs his sleeve, asking the agonizing question if an army rolls up. What stops Vincent from executing her out of pure spite? Dante freezes. He slowly turns to her with a look so chilling it stops her heart, and quietly admits that absolutely nothing stops him. Sometimes, the most agonizing lesson we learn is that we cannot control the final outcome. True bravery is walking straight into the fire anyway. Then Dante drops the ultimate hammer. He announces he is walking straight into the lion's den entirely alone to negotiate. If Vincent makes a single wrong move, the strike team will breach those gates and turn the estate into a graveyard. Emma is screaming, begging him to see that it is a suicide trap. But Dante just pulls her in by the waist and kisses her with bruising force. He pulls back and tells her he genuinely does not care if it is a trap, as long as her mother survives. Real love means throwing your own safety into the dirt just to secure someone else's peace. He forces her into Marco's car, ordering the enforcer to smuggle Emma out of the city forever if Dante is not back in 1 hour. Emma reaches for him, begging to stand by his side, but the dark night has already swallowed him whole. Listen to me, friends. You and I both know the look of a man making peace with the dark. Emma sees it in Dante. She gives him 1 hour before she chases him into the shadows, but he just offers a slow, heavy smirk. He presses a kiss to her lips, soft and desperate, like he is trying to brand her soul onto his own. Then, the door slams. The Audi roars into the black, leaving Marco to watch over her. Emma is vibrating with fear. Marco tries to steady her, swearing Dante has survived monsters worse than Vincent Russo. But Emma's voice cracks. Did he ever survive for himself, or just because he did not care if he died? Marco admits the terrifying truth. Dante never had a reason to live until her. Having someone to lose completely changes how a man fights. Marco leans against the rusted metal, admitting he has no idea if this love will make Dante reckless, or just utterly ruthless. The chill of the warehouse sinks into Emma's bones. She wraps her arms around herself, asking how long Marco has walked in this underworld. 8 years, he tells her, ever since the old man took his last breath. Marco chose Dante because, unlike the tyrants before him, Dante actually respects his men. He does not treat them like disposable pawns. When Emma whispers about the lives Dante has taken, Marco does not flinch. He just says the boss only buries those who beg for the dirt. True loyalty is never bought with fear. It is earned by treating your people with honor. Marco promises her mother is safe, and Vincent is just playing a desperate game. Emma wants to believe him, but the silence is suffocating. Her phone suddenly shatters the quiet. An unknown number glares from the screen. Her fingers tremble as she answers, and Vincent's voice slithers through the speaker, far too calm. He already knows Dante is tearing through the city for her mother. This was his trap all along. Emma begs him to let the innocent woman go, her voice breaking in the dark, but Vincent cuts her down with absolute ice. He says he watched Dante grow from a bruised boy into the deadliest phantom in Chicago. Dante only ever cared about power, until a baker caught his eye. Everyone has a hidden weakness, and love will always be the most dangerous weapon of all. Emma is left paralyzed, the phone heavy in her shaking hand. Emma demands to know what this monster wants from her. Vincent chuckles, a dry, hollow sound. He wants her to see the agonizing truth: she is destroying the king of this city. Kings do not fall to their knees for a civilian who smells like powdered sugar. They do not ignite massive gang wars over a girl they met 3 nights ago. Yet Dante is risking everything, and Vincent swears it will put him in the ground. Emma gasps, offering to run away and vanish into nothing if it means Dante survives. But Vincent delivers a crushing blow. The rival families already smell blood in the water. They know the devil has a heart now. The choices we make send ripples we can never control, deeply impacting those around us. The wolves are already at the door, and they are coming for him. Vincent dangles a poisoned lifeline. He tells Emma she must vanish like a ghost, breaking Dante's heart so deeply that he remembers love is just a fatal flaw. Vincent will fund her escape with fake names and endless cash. If she leaves, Dante will harden back into the untouchable boss of the underworld. Emma can barely process it, as she asks if she needs to fake her own death. Vincent replies softly that he just wants her to walk away, forever. The weight of that forever hits her like a physical blow. Her knees give out, and she collapses onto a wooden crate, waving away Marco's worried hands. It reminds us that the most agonizing sacrifices are often made in total silence. Trembling, she whispers into the receiver, asking how she could ever trust a man like him. Emma demands to know how she can be sure this is not a twisted game. Vincent tells her she cannot be sure, but she feels the truth rotting in her gut. She has watched Dante provoke the entire underworld just to keep her breathing. Sooner or later, a bullet will find its mark because he was distracted by her. Choking on her tears, Emma asks why Vincent even cares. The old gangster sighs, carrying the weight of decades. Dante is the strongest leader they have had in 30 years, and Vincent swore an oath to protect the boy. He refuses to watch another Moretti bleed out over romance. History will always repeat itself if we do not find the courage to break the cycle. He tells her Dante's mother made the exact same fatal mistake, and it destroyed everything. Let us look at this piece by piece, shall we? Vincent digs into the ghosts of Dante's family. His mother was so devoted that she endured the addiction, the violence, and the rot taking over her home. She traded her survival for a shattered man. Emma is weeping, whispering fiercely that she is nothing like his mother. Vincent agrees, but his words are sharp. She is making the devil soft, and in this city, soft men are put into early graves. It is a haunting truth that blind devotion can sometimes become our most tragic downfall. Vincent gives her exactly 24 hours to make her agonizing choice. Her mother will be delivered safely within the hour. The line goes dead. Emma sits completely frozen, gripping the phone as her mind shatters into pieces in the cold dark. Marco drops onto the concrete right in front of her, the shadows masking his worried eyes. He begs to know what the old man said, but Emma is trapped in her own nightmare. Her mind flashes violently between Vincent's hollow promises and the memory of Dante. Breathless and soaked in blood, she is drowning in the fear that loving him will sign his death warrant. A sharp vibration from her pocket pulls her back. It is a brief message from Dante. He found her mother. They are safe. Relief crashes over Emma so fiercely she gasps for air. Everyone is breathing. Everything should be perfect. But here is the tragic reality. Vincent planted a wicked seed in the dark soil of her mind, and despite her desperate prayers, the paranoia is already growing deep roots. You and I are going to sit with this and truly understand her spiral. She is crushed by the thought that her affection is a literal death warrant for the city's most feared man. Soon, tires scream against the pavement as a black sedan slides into the alley. Emma sprints from the shadows before the engine even dies. The door swings open, and her mother falls into her arms, shaking terribly but unharmed. Emma holds her tightly, but her mother is frantic, digging her nails into Emma's arms, begging to know who these monsters are. Emma swears she will explain, but then her eyes meet Dante's over her mother's shoulder. His face is an absolute void, drained of all emotion. The hardest lesson we ever learn is that buried secrets will always detonate when we least expect them. The interrogation begins the second they pull apart. Her mother demands to know what Vincent said. Frantically insisting, they pack their bags and vanish on the next midnight bus. But Emma gently pushes her back, taking a deep breath before dropping the bomb. She is not running. Her mother stares at her like she is a stranger, screaming that these men are butchers. She points at Dante, calling him the Grim Reaper himself. Then comes the painful guilt trip, crying that she raised her daughter to be smart and steer clear of the darkness. Emma does not flinch. She looks her weeping mother dead in the eye and delivers a chilling truth. She tells her that she raised her to survive. The quiet baker is finally standing her ground, proving that true courage always wakes up when our backs are pressed against the wall. Emma keeps her voice quiet, but it holds the weight of iron. She tells her mother this is what survival looks like. It means no longer drowning in debt, or working until her hands bleed for pennies. Her mother is sobbing, swearing that this monster will get her caught in the crossfire. Emma lets her eyes drift to the shadows where Dante stands, watching her like a silent guardian. She confesses the dark truth in her soul. She would rather die meaning something than fade away as a nobody. She was suffocating in that bakery, invisible to the world, until Dante looked at her like she was the only star in his sky. A profound truth lies here. We all just want to feel truly seen, even if the one watching us is a ruthless king of the underworld. Her mother stares at her, completely broken. She warns Emma with the sorrow of a woman who knows too much, that this dark romance will leave their hearts in ruins. Emma wraps her arms around her, breathing in that familiar perfume. She knows her mother is right, but she simply does not care anymore. Then, the older woman pulls away. She marches straight up to the deadliest man in Chicago, glaring at him with pure venom. She swears that if her daughter dies, she will claw her way back from the grave to destroy him. Dante does not flinch. He just offers a slow nod at it as a fair deal, absolute ice in his veins. Marco quietly guides the exhausted mother to a waiting car to hide her in a luxury hotel. Sometimes, protecting the ones you love means locking them safely away in a gilded cage. Stick with me, friends, because this is where the night gets heavily cold. The car fades into the dark, and Emma turns to face Dante. The man is shattered. Dried blood stains his head off sight, and thick shadows rest under his eyes. Yet the second he looks at her, the ruthless boss disappears. He softly asks if she's safe. She answers with a hollow laugh. Then he asks if Vincent got to her. She doesn't hold back, telling him about the deal. A new name, endless money, perfect safety, just to abandon him forever. He freezes the hostility, bracing for the blow. When she admits she needed time to think, the sheer devastation in his eyes is agonizing. It reminds us of a simple truth. The deepest wounds don't come from the guns of our enemies, but from the hesitation of the people we love. Emma steps forward and takes the face of this dangerous man firmly in her shaking hands. She fiercely promises the deal is dead, and she's not going anywhere. But then she demands the hard truth, asking if standing by her will put him in an early grave. Dante doesn't even blink. He looks right into her soul and whispers, probably. That brutal honesty steals her breath. She begs to know why he'd take that fatal risk. His answer is tragic and raw. He'd rather meet his end holding her than survive alone. He knows it's selfish, but she's the only pure thing he's known for in 15 years. The lesson here is undeniable. True love will always push a desperate person to make the most insanely reckless choices imaginable. Emma's fighting back hot tears. She asks the heaviest question of all. What if she can't survive the guilt of getting him killed? Dante drops his guard. His voice goes rough as he tells her she's always free to walk away. He admits he'd hate the silence, maybe even hate her for breaking him, but he refuses to cage her in a life that ruins her soul. Emma stares at him, and the truth clicks. Vincent was wrong. Loving her didn't make this terrifying man weak, it made him human. In his dark world, a beating heart is a fatal flaw, but looking at a man who walked into deadly traps just to keep her safe, her choice is easy, she's staying. Because here's a simple fact of life. True loyalty only ever proves its worth when the stakes are high enough to completely destroy you. Emma locks eyes with him and drops the final word. She's staying. The crushing weight of the world instantly melts off his shoulders. But she lays out the new reality. If she stays, she's an equal partner, not a fragile pet hidden in safe houses. No more making major decisions about her life without her voice. They fight this war together, or not at all. Dante actually smiles, a rare, genuine flash of light, and calls her a beautiful headache. Then he pulls her in for a kiss, so desperate it could break stone. It's a rough promise, signed in breath and heat. Emma gives it right back, pouring all her terror and stubborn fire into him. Always remember this simple lesson. If you want a permanent place in someone's life, you have to stand tall and demand the respect you deserve. When they pull away, Dante's breathing hard, his dark eyes swirling with a dangerous hunger. He mutters that they need to leave this cold warehouse before he loses his control in front of his guards. Emma actually laughs, defying the invisible target on her back, and tells him to take her home. He repeats that single word, home, like it's a foreign language he's just learning to speak. They ride back to his fortified penthouse in silence, his heavy hand securely wrapped around hers. Emma's mind is a total storm of violence, threats, and lingering panic. But beneath the fear, she feels perfectly anchored. And that brings us to a beautiful truth. Home is rarely a building with four walls. More often than not, home is simply the person who holds your hand through the darkest chaos. Come with me, friends, because we're about to uncover where this really began. They step into his penthouse, but the bunker suddenly feels warm. Dante locks the deadbolts, then turns to her with an intensity that stops her breath. He murmurs that he has a confession, something he should have shared days ago. Emma braces herself for another violent Mafia secret. Instead, he confesses that long before they officially met, he saw her catering a wealthy charity gala. He stood hidden in the shadows, watching her for 3 straight hours. He saw her working tirelessly, giving gentle smiles to terrible people, and sneaking sweet treats to kids. Here's a simple lesson to always remember. You never really know who's quietly admiring your bright light from the darkest corners of the room. Dante closes the gap, stepping deep into her space. His low voice drops as he tells her that watching her proved something. It proved that pure souls who make this miserable world better still exist. Emma stands there, tears welling up, robbed of words. He admits he ordered a full background check on her before that night ended. His original plan was to wire a massive, anonymous tip and vanish, but he couldn't do it. Framing her face in his rough hands, he confesses her smile haunted his thoughts. When she angrily marched into his office demanding payment for a late invoice, he knew fate was handing him a lifeline. The shocking truth washes over her. He rigged the whole game. The lesson here is quite simple. Sometimes destiny needs a calculated push from someone who refuses to let you go. The dark boss owns his manipulation without a single drop of shame. He confesses he deliberately choked her bakery's cash flow by freezing his payments. He gambled that her boss would send someone to collect, praying it'd be her. A wicked smile touches his lips as he admits he never expected her to kick his door open at midnight, covered in flour, ready to fight armed men over an invoice. Emma's laughing through her tears, admitting she thought he'd execute her right there. Dante brushes her tears away with his rough thumbs and drops a heavy vow. He's keeping her. Emma challenges him right back, asking if forever is truly on the table. The man is completely hooked. The lesson is simple. When you finally find the exact thing your soul needs, you do whatever it takes to hold on tight. You and I know how these stories go, but watch as Emma decides that if forever is the goal, they need to start now. She reaches up and pulls this terrifying man down into a kiss that changes everything. It's slow, deliberate, and aching with promise. Dante surrenders entirely, holding her as if he's been drowning in the dark, and she's his first breath of air. When they break apart, chests heaving in the quiet room, he drops his armor. He looks at her and softly says that he loves her. He knows it defies logic, and he knows it's dangerously fast. But the heavy words bleed out of him anyway. Here's a vital life lesson for you. When a profound truth is screaming inside your bones, keeping it buried does nothing but break you. Emma is totally terrified, but her heart is soaring. She looks at the most dangerous man in the city and whispers that she loves him too. The admission rocks Dante to his core. His breath hitches before he crashes back into her, his kiss desperate and consuming. Emma melts into the heat, surrendering to this dark fairy tale. She chooses to believe that even monsters deserve a happy ending. Even if it's written in blood, they don't even make it past the kitchen. Dante backs her against the marble counter, his heavy hands wandering everywhere. He touches her jaw, her waist, gripping her hair like a starving man. He needs physical proof that she's real and not a fading dream. The lesson here is undeniable. Sometimes you simply have to fight for the exact love you want, no matter how chaotic and violent the battlefield becomes. The heat spikes instantly. Emma's trembling so badly she can't manage the buttons on his shirt. Dante simply yanks the fabric over his head and tosses it away. She gasps against him, reminding him he promised to take things slow. Dante lets out a rough laugh and admits he lied. He whispers that his patience is gone. His lips trace her neck, finding the exact spot that makes her dizzy. Just as the fire consumes them, her personal phone begins to ring loudly. Dante mutters to let it go, but the heavy ringing refuses to stop. Cursing bitterly in Italian, he snatches the device off the marble counter. The moment his eyes hit the glowing caller ID, his face turns to absolute ice. Life always has a cruel lesson to teach. The harsh reality of the world never waits for you to finish your perfect moment. Here's the brutal twist that changes everything. Vincent's name is on the screen. Emma feels the floor drop from under her feet. Dante puts the call on speaker, coldly warning his former mentor that he has 30 seconds to speak. Vincent sounds horribly relaxed as he drops a catastrophic bomb. The grace period he offered Emma is dead. The rival families gathered in the shadows tonight and struck. Dante's been completely outmaneuvered. They're stripping his crown, claiming his streets, and tearing his empire apart. Vincent offers one twisted way out. Dante can keep his throne, but only if he surrenders Emma to the wolves tonight. It's the ultimate poison pill. The lesson is written in stone. Always expect your worst enemies to strike while your heart is distracted, because violent greed never needs a night to rest. Vincent lays the ultimatum bare, and the air in the room goes dead. It is the kind of choice that breaks a man in half the empire he bled for, or the girl standing beside him. Emma loses all her color, pressing trembling hands against his chest, feeling the violent rhythm of his heart. Dante grinds his teeth, demanding a unanimous vote, but Vincent holds the winning hand. He invokes a ruthless wartime clause drafted by Dante's own father. 3 rival syndicates have already signed the death warrant. Just one more signature and 15 years of sacrifice vanish. Dante cuts the call with a voice of pure, deadly ice. The brutal truth of this life is simple. The ghosts of our past always return, right when we finally find something worth living for. Stick with me tonight, because the walls are closing in fast. The moment the call drops, Dante hurls his phone, shattering it against the plaster. Emma flinches, her breath catching. She prays it is a bluff, but the raw tension in Dante's shoulders tells the truth. She asks the heavy question, what happens if he loses his entire empire and his protection? Dante pulls her against him, gripping her so fiercely it almost hurts. He stares into her tear-filled eyes and swears he does not care what they take. She begs him not to surrender his family legacy for someone he just met, but his resolve is terrifyingly absolute. He simply tells her to watch him do it, sometimes. Genuine loyalty means being entirely willing to burn your own kingdom to the ground, just to keep one single person safe. The dam breaks, and Dante lets all the bitter years spill into the room. He spent 15 years ruling an empire he never wanted, bound by rules he despises, only to face a cold death surrounded by men who fear him. He cradles her face, admitting she is the only pure thing he has ever touched. Emma weeps, forcing him to look at the brutal reality. Without the syndicate, his rivals will smell blood and hunt him down. Dante stands like stone, whispering for them to try, proud of the hell he has survived. But Emma refuses to back down, reminding him that a king cannot fight a whole war without an army. It reminds us of a simple truth. You can be the strongest soul on earth, but no one survives the darkest battles in this life entirely alone. Emma forces her racing mind to focus, demanding the names on the execution order. Dante recites the grim list. The Russos were guaranteed, the Calabresas signed because Dante eliminated their boss, leaving a vengeful cousin eager for blood. Then come the Lombardists, brutal traditionalists who despise Dante's quiet restraint, hating his refusal to deal in torture. To them, his love for Emma proves he is weak, but Emma sees a glimmer of hope. If 4 signatures strip his crown, they only need to intercept the final vote before the ink dries. It is a desperate play, but her logic holds up perfectly. When the world is collapsing around you, the only way forward is to firmly grasp the single piece you actually have the power to change. Emma starts piecing the fractured puzzle together. If 3 enemies have already signed, who is holding the final pen? Dante exhales slowly and names the Marchesi faction. They are the eternal neutral ground, avoiding blood feuds at all costs. With their patriarch battling illness, his brilliantly sharp daughter Sophia now pulls the strings. Emma does not hesitate, insisting they confront Sophia directly. Dante argues the politics are far too dangerous, but Emma's eyes blaze with determination. If Sophia sits on the fence, she can be pulled to their side. They just need to uncover her deepest desire and hand it over. It is a profound lesson in human nature. If you truly need someone in your corner, you must look past your own survival and offer them the one thing they absolutely cannot live without. The realization dawns in Dante's heavy eyes. The Marchesis are not soldiers, they are pure businessmen. Their empire thrives on shipping, meaning they have zero interest in territory disputes. Their only god is profit, and profit demands absolute peace. Emma leans in, her voice urgent. They must prove that stripping Dante of his crown will plunge the city into a catastrophic war. You can see the strategy forming in Dante's mind. His rivals have spent years circling his territory like starving wolves. If he falls, those factions will butcher each other for his throne. Sophia is entirely too calculated to let street violence bleed her accounts dry. It proves a valuable point. When you force people to look closely at the destructive consequences of their actions, logic usually prevails over blind greed. Emma refuses to lose momentum, declaring they must visit Sophia tonight. Dante stares at her as if she has lost her mind. The clock just struck midnight, but Emma delivers a chilling dose of reality. If they wait for the sun to rise, Vincent will slither into Sophia's ear and seal their fate forever. Dante remains still before a deep, genuine laugh escapes his chest. It is a rare sound in his dark life. He calls her completely insane. But she reminds him that loving a syndicate boss requires a certain madness. Life teaches us that sometimes the most reckless, bold move is the only one that can truly save you. Within minutes, they are speeding through the empty streets in a heavy sedan. Emma smooths down her midnight blue gown, feeling utterly terrified, yet entirely ready for whatever comes next. Let us unpack this together, because presentation is everything in this brutal world. Dante insisted on that formal gown because someone like Sophia only respects unyielding power. You must look like you own the earth beneath your feet. In the backseat's shadows, Emma grips her own hands to hide the trembling. Sensing her fear, Dante leans close, sliding his fingers through hers. He offers her a safe way out, sink to face the wolves alone. But Emma refuses to abandon him. She squeezes his hand tightly, proving they walk into this fire side by side. Their sedan glides up to a massive estate built on old money and dark secrets. The lesson is clear. Standing by someone in their darkest hour takes an immense amount of courage. Up ahead, an armed guard steps out to block the towering iron gates. The window slides down, and Dante speaks with the chilling authority of a man who commands armies. He tells the guard he is seeing Sophia immediately. After a nervous mutter into a radio, the iron gates slowly part. They follow a winding path toward a sprawling fortress that makes Dante's vast wealth seem modest. Oddly, the manor is blazing with light, cutting through the deep night. Waiting on the grand steps is Sophia herself. She is striking, barely 30, her dark eyes analyzing every vulnerability they possess. Dressed impeccably in silk at this late hour, she looks like a predator expecting prey. Her greeting is as sharp and freezing as winter wind. It is a brilliant reminder to always stay composed. The person who remains perfectly calm in the chaos will always hold the upper hand in the room. Dante wastes no time, his voice slicing the cold air as he brings up the syndicate vote. Sophia holds a perfectly blank expression, but a fleeting twitch in her eyes betrays the lie. Dante corners her, revealing he knows Vincent tried to poison her against him. He steps forward, ready to make his counter-proposal. Slowly, Sophia turns her unnerving stare toward Emma, demanding her identity. Dante's hand rests protectively on Emma's spine, introducing her as the catalyst for his downfall. Sophia smirks, dismissing Emma as a fragile civilian who sparked a bloody war. But Emma refuses to shatter. She squares her shoulders and fires back that she is the only one trying to stop the bloodshed. Here is a vital truth. You must never let anyone else write your story. If you do not stand your ground, the world will simply swallow you whole. Let us examine the power dynamics here. Dante and Emma step into a shadowy study reeking of old wealth. Sophia grants them exactly 10 minutes. She pours whiskey without offering a glass, seating herself behind a massive desk to establish absolute dominance. Dante steps into the lion's den, warning that if he is dethroned, the remaining families will tear each other apart for his empire, burning the streets to ash. Sophia leans back, entirely unbothered, and coldly asks why she should care. This reveals a cynical truth about survival. People rarely care about a tragedy unless it directly threatens their own livelihood. A dark smirk crosses Dante's tired face. He calmly notes that every single one of her lucrative shipping routes runs directly through his heavily armed territory. It is an undeniable, beautiful checkmate. Dante lays the undeniable math on the table. A street war means paralyzed ports, seized cargo, and zero revenue for the Marchese Empire. He has maintained a profitable peace for 15 years, a peace no new leader could ever uphold. Sophia sips her drink, her expression unreadable. She concedes his logic, but sharply highlights his fatal vulnerability. Pointing coldly at Emma, she labels her a walking liability, the exact distraction that terrified the syndicates into acting. Emma refuses to shrink away. She plants her feet, declaring her humanity and her absolute loyalty. Sophia's eyes turn to frost, noting that is precisely why Dante is doomed. The lesson here is incredibly harsh. Letting blinding emotions steer the wheel, rather than calculated logic, possesses the tragic power to dismantle an empire you spent a lifetime bleeding for. Sophia warns that thinking with your heart gets you buried in the underworld. Dante does not flinch. Beneath the oak table, he finds Emma's hand and squeezes it tight. He fires back with pure conviction. Maybe love is exactly what makes him fight harder. Now, he has a real reason to defend his empire. Sophia goes entirely silent before dropping a devastating truth. Her father is dying. Dante offers quiet respect, but Sophia waves away the pity. Watching her father fade has forced her to question what a legacy means. She looks at Emma, revealing her father's ultimate regret. He wished he had chosen love over the Mafia when he still had time. At the end of the line, "My friends, your bank account will never hold your hand. True connection is all we truly have." Sophia drops a heavy piece of wisdom into the room. Absolute power and endless cash feel completely hollow when you are lying on your deathbed alone. Emma feels a sharp ache and softly apologizes, but Sophia snaps back that her father is not in the grave quite yet. When he passes, she will inherit the throne of her family and make the rules. Pacing by the window, she vents about the old mobsters who traded away their souls to build a mountain of blood money. And for what? To die surrounded by people who fear them, rather than people who love them. The lesson is clear. Chasing power blindly will always leave you isolated in the cold. Sophia turns back, stating she will give Dante her crucial vote. But there is one massive catch. Dante narrows his dark eyes, bracing for the hit. "Stick with me, because this is where the shadows get deep." Dante asks what her condition is, and Sophia drops an earthquake of a twist. He has to marry Emma. The air leaves Emma's lungs. Dante grips her hand so hard it aches, totally blindsided. He growls at her to repeat herself. Sophia doubles down, telling him to put a ring on Emma's finger for the underworld to see. If he makes her official family, it flips the script. She stops being a vulnerability and becomes a shielded asset to solidify his empire. Sophia explains the mob hates Emma because she is just a fling. But as a wife, she commands respect that guns cannot buy. Sometimes you have to completely shatter the rules of the game just to survive it. Emma's mind is screaming. They have only known each other for 4 days. This is pure madness. Dante is losing his mind, protesting that they barely even know each other. Sophia stares back with eyes like winter ice. She could not care less. If he wants her vote, a wedding is the price. If he refuses, she aligns her soldiers with his deadliest enemies. The room falls dead silent. Emma can hear her own pulse, feeling the subtle tremor in Dante's strong grip. He looks down at her with a wrecked expression, whispering that she does not have to do this. He carries the heavy guilt of dragging her into a mafia war. But instead of running, Emma cuts him off. She asks Sophia if this insane plan will actually work. Sophia nods. Girlfriends are easy targets, but wives are entirely untouchable. True commitment, my friends, often provides the absolute strongest armor when life gets dangerously dark. Untouchable. Let the weight of that word sink in. Emma turns to Dante, the brooding mafia boss who dismantled her quiet life in less than a week. This man fought for her, ignited a gang war, and was ready to burn his empire to keep her breathing. She looks into his tortured eyes, takes a breath, and whispers okay. Dante is paralyzed, begging her to walk away from the nightmare, but Emma levels up right in front of him. Her voice rises, unbreakable. "I will marry you." Dante panics, desperate to shield her from the danger. But she drops the ultimate checkmate. He promised to put her above everything, so now she is choosing him right back. The chaos, the shadows, the forever, she owns it all. When you find that rare soul worth fighting for, you go all in, no matter the cost. Listen closely, because this is where the story shatters the mold. Emma doubles down and says yes. Dante stares at her, blown away by her fierce loyalty, before ordering Sophia out. The second the heavy door clicks shut, Dante scoops Emma into his arms. He is vibrating, with panic, whispering that this is wrong. He wanted to do the traditional thing. He wanted to buy a massive diamond, bring roses, and do it right. But Emma grabs his rugged face and shuts down the fairy tale nonsense. She says she does not care about shiny rocks. She just wants his heart. If marrying the boss is how she survives his world, she is all in. Dante calls her completely insane, but honestly, you and I both know that sometimes taking a terrifying leap of faith is the exact move you need to find where you belong. Emma lets out a breathless laugh and says she will say yes 1,000 times. Dante rests his forehead against hers, wishing he could give her a peaceful moment. But Emma is ruthless. She demands he ask her properly right this second, before Sophia walks back in. Dante lets out a rough laugh, and suddenly the terrifying mafia boss drops to one knee on the study floor. No hesitation. He grabs her hand, his grip totally steady now. He looks up at her and drops the craziest truth. He has only known her for 4 days. 4 days. And she has completely flipped his dark universe upside down. He is feeling emotions he buried years ago, craving a life he thought was impossible. It goes to show you, true love never runs on a schedule. When the right soul walks in, it changes the world instantly. He hits her with the most raw proposal imaginable. No diamond ring, no flowers, just a fiercely spoken promise from a dangerous man to spend his entire life protecting her, ensuring she never regrets picking him. Emma drops a breathless, tearful yes. Dante pulls her into an epic, desperate kiss that tastes of whiskey and shattered rules. When they pull apart, Sophia is leaning in the doorway, genuinely impressed. She gives them the green light and drops a massive bomb. The wedding is happening in exactly 3 days. She promises to spread the word, so the underworld knows Emma is untouchable. Sophia pulls out her phone to call their violent rival and lay down the law. It proves that true loyalty means stepping into the fire to protect your people, no matter how dangerous the fallout. Sophia is playing absolute chess. She will tell Vincent her family is voting to keep Dante in power, forming a steel wall to block the other bosses from making a move. Emma's head is spinning. 3 days? That is barely enough time to pick a dress. Sophia flashes a razor-sharp smile. In the underworld, 3 days is an entire lifetime. She tells Emma to show up and look like a queen. They leave the estate in a daze. Marco drives the sedan in dead silence while Emma clings to Dante's hand. She is marrying a mob boss she met days ago. It is totally unhinged, yet weirdly perfect. Dante looks at her quietly, offering one final out. He says he can handle the families another way if she wants to run. It shows that a good partner always gives you a choice, even when letting you walk away might break their own heart. Emma completely abandons any thought of escaping. She leans her head on his broad shoulder, telling him she is not running away, even if they are moving dangerously fast. Dante pulls her close, his voice thick and rough. He confesses that he loves her, far more than he ever believed his ruined heart was capable of. Emma tilts her head, kisses him deeply, and drops the ultimate truth. She tells him to take her home and prove it. Dante's gaze darkens instantly. He reminds her they were supposed to take it slow. But Emma whispers that the slow route is dead. She wants everything he has to give. Something primal snaps inside his chest. He leans up and barks at Marco to floor the gas. Here is your final truth. When you finally stumble onto something real, there is absolutely no reason to waste another second waiting. The next 72 hours evaporate into a hurricane of silk and quiet threats. Sophia commands the wedding preparations like a ruthless military campaign, leaving Emma gasping for air between endless fittings and the cold glares of mob soldiers. Just a day before the vows, Emma's mother pushes into the penthouse, trembling with rage and defeat. She stares at the expensive white gown and asks if her daughter is truly risking her life for a man she met 4 days ago. Emma gently corrects her. 5 days. She admits it sounds insane, but Dante brings her a profound peace she has never felt. You and I both know the truth about this. Our loved ones will always carry a heavy burden of fear for us, but when the night falls, you are the only one who can choose your own happiness. Tears spill down her mother's face as she begs to know if happiness is worth a bullet in the dark. Emma stops her right there. She grips those trembling hands and swears she has never been more protected. Dante loves her with a fierce fire, the exact kind of devotion her mother always said was a lie. Emma is walking into his shadows with her eyes wide open. Her mother finally cracks, pulling her daughter into a desperate embrace, promising to haunt Dante if he ever lets her get hurt. The wedding day arrives with a heavy, surreal tension. They stand in a cathedral, the pews overflowing with dangerous men. Marco and Tony guard the altar like stone statues. It shows that sometimes you have to walk straight into the heart of the storm to finally claim your own peace. The air in the church is thick with dangerous energy. Sophia sits in the front row, fragile but tracking everything with sharp eyes. Emma walks down that long aisle entirely on her own. Her mother refused to attend the criminal circus. But Emma feels no sting of rejection. All she sees is Dante at the altar, staring at her as if the universe revolves around her every breath. The ceremony passes in a dizzying blur. She focuses solely on the warmth of his scarred hands holding hers. The vows fading into white noise. Dante pulls her close and kisses her with a desperate intensity, erasing the room completely. It is a beautiful reminder that real love can silence the most deafening chaos. Just like that, they are swept into a massive, crowded reception. Through the smoke of the reception, Emma shakes hands with ruthless men until her fingers lose feeling. She forces a smile, fighting back Vincent's dark promise that loving Dante would only dig his grave. Yet, when she glances at her husband, standing like a king among thieves with his fingers laced through hers, the terror fades. She sees raw hope in his eyes. Let us be honest with each other, this is beautiful madness. It could burn them to ashes eventually. But the greatest rewards always demand the most terrifying leaps of faith. Hours later, the noise finally dies down. They stand alone on their penthouse balcony, wrapped in the cold city air. Dante pulls her against his chest, his voice a rough whisper, asking if she regrets stepping into his violent world. Emma gazes over the cold, glittering expanse of the Chicago skyline. the reality of her new life settling in. She turns to face Dante, the ruthless boss who risked his blood-stained empire just to keep her breathing. A gentle smile breaks across her face as she tells him she has zero regrets. Not one. Just pause and think about how fast the world spins. Only days ago, Emma was holding a simple invoice, praying for a miracle in a killer's office. Now, she is living a love story that defies logic, burning the old rules to the ground to build a new kingdom from the ashes. It is a powerful lesson that even the most terrifying monsters can grasp redemption. And ordinary souls always possess the hidden courage to wear a crown when destiny calls their name. They stand in the dark, fully aware that the storm is far from over. The rival families will come hunting, and Vincent will inevitably crawl out of the shadows to plant his poison again. But looking at each other, the fear is gone. They will face the teeth of the underworld as one front. Emma is finished running from her ghosts. She has transformed, standing unbroken beside the most dangerous man in the city. She understands that this chaotic, blood-soaked path is exactly where her soul belongs. Life teaches us that sometimes the most terrifying detours are the only roads that truly lead you home. We have reached the final chapter of this dark, cinematic story, and I hope it leaves you thinking about the risks you are willing to take for your own happiness.
Dante's love for Emma is intense, protective, and overwhelming. He wants to keep her safe at any cost. He sends cars, guards, clothes, and protection. He removes threats before they reach her. In his dangerous world, control feels like love because danger is everywhere. But this creates one of the most important lessons in the story. Love without choice can become another kind of prison. Emma does not want to be hidden away without explanation. She does not want decisions made about her life without her voice. Even though Dante believes he is protecting her, Emma eventually demands something deeper than safety. She asks for honesty, partnership, and respect. She tells him they must face things together, or not at all. This is an important educational point for relationships. Protection is meaningful only when it respects the other person's freedom. A healthy relationship should not silence one partner in the name of safety. It should not treat someone as fragile just because they are loved. Real love says, I want to protect you, but it also says, I respect your right to choose. Emma's growth is shown through her ability to speak up. At first, she is frightened and uncertain. Later, she becomes clear and firm. She chooses Dante, but she also sets boundaries. That matters. Love should not erase identity. It should strengthen it. The story reminds viewers that being loved deeply is not enough if that love does not include respect. A person should not have to disappear, obey, or stay silent to be protected. The best kind of love is not control. It is partnership, trust, and the courage to face danger side by side.